Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com, your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly for pricing. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Launched in 2014, this is the second generation Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore Safari, sometimes known as the Safari Vintage. It took the popular Savannah tinted dial that debuted during the 2000s and changed it with some more dramatic color contrasts, most notably the contrasting brown-bronze tachymeter scale and contrasting brown-bronze registers. Now, this watch is technically 42 millimeters in diameter in stainless steel, but it wears much, much larger. It's more like a conventional 44 or 45 millimeter round watch. So 42 is the diameter. It's 14.6 millimeters thick. From lug to lug, it measures an already beefy 53.9 millimeters, but if we measure these two little independent links outboard, the so-called plots, then the total distance across the wrist is 57.5 millimeters. So this is a big watch, and I'm not going to recommend it for a small wrist. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. We'll move out a little bit so you get a better sense of scale, and you can tell me whether you think this would fit your wrist. I think I could wear this with a wrist of 16 centimeters circumference, but I don't think you would want a wrist much smaller than 15 centimeters circumference to wear it well. It's not quite as thick as I would have expected, and with a slightly sloped bezel, it will fit underneath a jacket cuff, just not the tightest of dress sleeves. You see, it wouldn't blend well with my shirt sleeve, although the sweater would probably be just fine. It's very solid and has a feature that's rare on these watches, a full bracelet. Not only does this restore some of the integrated look of the original Gerald Genta Royal Oak, but it also adds durability. You won't be investing $300 to $500 in a new strap every 2 to 3 years. You have the bracelets, you don't have to worry about that periodic expense. It also makes the watch more swimmable since you don't have to worry about getting leather wet. And then finally, it better counterbalances the watch on the wrist. When you close everything up, you snap the bracelet clasp shut. Now you can see that from top to bottom, all the way around, there's a lot of mass. So if this watch were just on a buckle with a strap, it might have a tendency to sort of capsize or hula hoop on the wrist if you prefer to wear your watch loose. Whereas on the bracelet with a nice counterweight on the underside, it doesn't have as much of a tendency to move around. Now, the watch is beautifully made. All Royal Oaks and Offshores feature extensive hand finishing, and you can see it's not just the contrast between the satin and the polish of the bezel or the break between the bevels and the hoods of the lugs. You can see there are tiny details, things like the micro beveling on the crown guards, which were a new design for 2014. Also a new design for 2014, you had the ceramic crown shoulder and chronograph pushers. Previously, these had been covered in a polymer, and you can see that the ceramic, which is very scratch resistant, also is double finished, as we have polished highlights and then satin main segments for a nice contrast. These two hand finished. Audemars Piguet does things the right way. It's a big, heavy, and expensive watch, so the bracelet is fixed to the case using screws and bars, no spring bars here. We have a tapered bracelet, so we have a nice neck down from the profile of the integrated lugs, and then you can see we have a combination of polishing and satin on these features. The individual links are quite solid, and removable links are fixed by screws. It is a thick, redoubtable, and nicely made bracelet, but you can see there are gaps on the underside. That's calculated and deliberate to avoid pinching your skin and pulling your wrist hair. Double fold deployment. Internally, you can see satination as well as media blasted finish. It's a sequential double close, so it closes one side before the other. The AP logo caps the top. It's also twin trigger release, so you have to press both triggers to open it up. Insurance against accidental deployment. Now you can see that there is a continuation of the character lines of the bezel through the mid case and the case back, so there's a lot of design continuity here. We have a large expressed bezel gasket. That would have been a hairline on the original Royal Oak. Emmanuel Get, when he designed the Royal Oak Offshore as a 20th anniversary tribute to the original Royal Oak, yeah, he made everything bigger, but he also fully expressed the bezel gasket, so now it's a distinct part of the case's style. You can see that the bezel is surprisingly nuanced. It has a face that's vertical and satin finished, then a sloped, rounded profile that's polished, and then has a top that's flat, squared off, and vertically satinated. Of course, the original Royal Oak rounded octagon bezel was inspired by a vintage diving helmet, and then we have these hexagonal bolts that are sunken into the bezel. On a Royal Oak, they would be white gold or gold. Here on an Offshore, they're made of steel, and you can see that the crown shoulder too has a hexagonal form. The dial is what defines the Safari models, and this so-called Safari Vintage features a little bit of a sort of patina-like off-white primary dial color. It is the Mega Tapisserie dial, the largest hobnail that Audemars Piguet offers. We have white varnished hands for the chronograph functions, and then polished hands in white gold, as well as polished logo and numerals. Of course, the watch is loomed. You may ask, why all that white gold? Well, so it won't tarnish, oxidize, or corrode over time. There is enough lume that you can see the watch in the dark. We have a tachymeter scale outboard, and you can see it's heavily dished, acting as a rayhot. It has a scale that allows you to use the chronograph to gauge the speed of objects moving very quickly. We have that brown bronze color for the registers, the tack, and the sub-registers, and then that off-white metallic cream color for the dial base. You can also see that there is a magnifier built into the dial for reading the date, and the watch features both hacking seconds and a quick set date. It also features a Dubois de Praz vertical clutch chronograph module. Because of the vertical clutch, there's no jump or stagger to the seconds hand when you start it up. And because of the Dubois de Praz module, you can see that the pushers are a little bit above the center line of the crown. That's because it is a modular movement. Now, the watch includes a manufacturer base caliber, and of course, I'll demonstrate real quick. It does have the hacking seconds I promised you, as well as the quick set date function. It's an automatic winder with bidirectional winding action and ceramic rotor bearings, and it has a 50 to 55 hour power reserve. It beats away at 21,600 vibrations per hour. It pivots on 59 joules, and it has a full batwing shaped balance bridge with a free sprung Gyromax style balance for precise adjustment and great shock resistance. We have the coats of arms of the Audemars and Piguet family on the rotor to remind you that AP is the oldest Swiss watch brand, still in the hands of the founding families and still run by them. And then we have a combination of handsome hand finish and mechanical finish on this movement, which is finished to a standard that I would compare favorably to something like F.P. Journe. We have Côte de Genève, engine turning, black polished screw heads. It's quite nicely done, even if the beveling is applied in a mechanical manner. A good looking and tough sports watch caliber inside a watch that is 100 meters water resistant. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.